All right, good evening, everybody. How are you all? I'm Bobby Alton. I'm the Dare County Manager, and welcome all you out tonight. We're here tonight to talk about the Beach Nourishment Project, to give you all some idea of what we're doing, sort of give you a status report, and then maybe more importantly, to answer questions that you all have or may have about that project and what that means to you, wherever you might be. So we'll get into that in just a minute. We have some of our Board of Commissioners here. We have Chairman Woodard here on the end, Mary Ellen Balance, Urban Bateman, Rob Ross, Mike Flynn with the Park Service, Dave Howell with the Park Service. Dustin Peel over there in the white shirt, he's our project manager, and he's going to be one of our go-to people if we have questions that I can't answer, because he's the one that's done all the work for the most part for the county side. And we have Steve Tranum over there. He's our engineer that has helped design the project and work at it. And then we have Commissioner Steve House and Commissioner Mike Burris down there on the end as well. So we'll get started in a minute. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you wanted to say anything before we start.
I just wanted, on behalf of the board, I just wanted to say thank all y'all for being here this evening. I hope what we have to say fills you in on the project and answers a lot of your questions. So don't hesitate to, when we finish the presentation, to ask questions, and hopefully we can give you all the right answers you want to hear. So, but thank y'all all for being here. We really appreciate it.
So I'm going to sort of give you a 30,000-foot overview of where we are, and then I'll have Steve come up and he can show you a little bit about the project, the limits of the project, the design of the project, and all that. Some good news, I'll just go ahead and share it now. We got our permits today from the state for both the project for the beach project as well as for the growing project. So we're good to go on the state side, and we have our approvals coming. If they're not signed yet, they're about to be from the Park Service as well. And all we're waiting on now is the core permits, and then we'll have everything good to go from the permitting side. So that's a lot of progress probably since the last time that we talked. So we've been working on this thing for a while. We've asked them to do it. We've bid the project. The bids have come in. The bids have come in higher than we expected. We're working on some alternatives to make it work, because we need to get this project done, and we think we can make it work. We're counting on some FEMA funding to do that. FEMA is committed to paying for a portion of this project, but with the things going on in DC, we're not yet have that money in our account. So until we do, we aren't sure with that. So we've bid it with the FEMA money, without the FEMA money, and depending on what comes of that will determine how many yards of sand goes where in the two projects that we're doing in both Avon and in Buxton. So that's kind of where we are. That's kind of what we're doing. The purpose of, again, for this meeting is to give you all a chance to ask questions. And I think we have the right people here to answer them. Steve, if you want to come up and sort of take us through what the project entails, and then we can get into the question and answer part of this.
Give me just a second here to log in. There we go. All right, thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Again, my name is Stephen Trainum, President of Coastal Science and Engineering. We've had the pleasure of working with the county for several years now on past projects at Buxton Avon and this upcoming project now. If Bobby gave you the 30,000 foot view, I think I'm gonna give you the 28,000 foot view, just bring it down a little bit lower because a lot of the details have been presented before. And this really is a chance for y'all to ask questions and we'll respond to those questions. So just a little bit more detail. The projects that we're looking at are very similar to the projects that have been conducted before at Buxton and Avon. Beach nourishment projects using sand coming from offshore sources. There'll be dredges, either hopper dredges and or cutter head dredges, most likely a hopper dredge that excavates material from bar areas about 2 miles offshore and puts that material onto the beach. We are looking at trying to get going with that project as soon as we can, hopefully by late April or early May, getting the work going. And the work will, again, it'll look very similar to the past projects as far as the design. We will be placing dunes in areas that currently do not have any dunes, but areas that have healthy dune systems and along the national seashore. We'll just be nourishing the berm. It is important to note that the final volumes are still to be determined based off the amount of funding that we do receive from FEMA. So what's has been shown in the permits and plans may change based off of that final dollar amount. The Buxton project, we're hoping to add about twice as much sand as was added during the last project in 2022. We've seen a lot more erosion the past couple of years, almost double the erosion that we saw from the 2018 project through the second project. So we're trying to account for the high erosion, and that's due to several different factors, due to just the way nature's moving around with the trough and the bar. Also, the deterioration of the groin at the south end is likely leading to some additional erosion. So that's something we'll talk about in a minute. The bulk of the fill along the Buxton area will be along the village, but the fill will extend along the national seashore to help bulk up the beach condition in front of Highway 12. Similar at Avon, much lower fill densities there. The beach is generally in much better shape. The area south of the pier is where we have our highest erosion areas that will receive the most amount of sand in that area, but it will extend about almost a mile to the north of the pier. So where are we at? As Bobby said, we were able to get the state permit for the Buxton project this week. We have the Avon permit. We have a draft of the NPS permit that was issued last night or today? An hour ago. Okay. So that's in hand now. So we are just waiting on the federal permit now. And we've been in communication with those project managers. We're anticipating that permit to be issued by the 1st of March or so. Which would set us up on a timeline where the board could review the awards and recommend an award, and we could issue notice to proceed in very early April, which again could set up the first or the first opportunity for sand pumping as early as possibly May. Finally, we're also moving forward with the repair plan for the southernmost groin at the lighthouse site. So that permit has been sent in, is being reviewed. We have the state preliminary permit for that. We're still waiting on the federal permits for that as well, but we also anticipate those here in the next month or two, which will allow us to go out for bid, finalize the plans for that, and do that work this summer as well. We think that will be a very significant component of this kind of overall beach management project. We're really anticipating that to be able to solidify some sand retention, especially at the southern end of the Buxton area. That work is likely to take 3 months or so. The schedule is a little bit more undetermined on that yet, but we're hoping to get it done and very much anticipate getting it done this summer as well. So with that, Bobby, if I missed anything, I'm going to address it now, but open it up for questions.
So you now see what we're doing, you see where we're doing it, and I know there are likely to be questions, and so I think we should just dive in and let's answer the questions. So are there questions? Raise your hand, I'll call on you. Yes, sir.
There's a mic over here on the right side.
Yeah, if you'd come up here for your question, please.
You had, on one of the slides, it's had, one part of it had dune construction and the other one said no dune. What's the status of that?
The goal is to have dunes. I'm talking about in Buxton, in Avon as well.
Yeah, I think in Avon, there are places where the dune would be restored where it's been eroded over the past year.
But Buxton will be a complete dune?
Not along the village, yes.
Okay.
Not along the seashore.
And you said summer for the construction of the jetty. What part of the summer? What are we, I mean,
Don't
you're
know
going to be
yet.
putting a lot of sand out there before you have a jetty to hold it.
Well, the goal is to do them at the same time. The problem is we don't control the timing of the permits. You know, if we get a late growing permit, Great Lakes has got to get out there before the weather. We don't want to get in a situation like we did the last time where weeks got caught and didn't finish and had to come back in the spring. So they're going to have to start whether we're ready with the growing or not. And so we're hoping that they line up, but we don't control that timing.
What's the delay on the permit, on the federal permit?
The permitting agencies have to go through, and maybe Dave, I'll get you to help me with this. They've got to go through all of their agencies for agencies reviews, and each of those agencies has a time frame in which they have to do that. And so it's just rolling through that process right now as we speak so that they can get all that completed, and then they take that comments and then they draw our permits.
So we don't know.
So what do we say? Do we know any idea what that timing is?
We've been told that hopefully by the end of March, we would have that permit. I don't want to hold them to that, but we are doing everything that we can to be prepared to go out for a bid for construction of that immediately after reception of that permit. And I would anticipate that could be a pretty quick turnaround, and we should be able to get it even under a bad case scenario complete by the end of the summer, which the construction of the Nourishment will take several months. So we'll still be within that timeline.
And has the plan changed from what it was before as far as the placement of the dune in Buxton with the houses that are gone now?
The dune line is obviously moved to the west because we're going to try to keep it as far to the west as we can. But you got houses that are there that you got to go around or move. And there's some houses that are likely to fall. And so that dune line will be finalized once we get closer to starting the construction based on whatever the situation is. Then how many houses have been fallen? We know that there's some permits issued for 2 or 3 of them to be moved. And so all those would impact where we put the dunes. But the idea would be to put it as far to the landward side as we can because it makes for a better project.
And how does that impact people that have property that'll be either behind the dune, or the dune will either be behind their property or on their property?
How does it impact them?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're asking me.
My lot is in line with the old road bed of Tower Circle. And if that, as has been rumored, is going to be where the dune is placed, that means the dune will be on top of our lot.
So we've sent out easements to the oceanfront property owners. We've gotten back easements to place the dune on all but 5, Dustin? 4 now, all but 4 lots.
That, I got one of those, and it did not say anything about placing the dune on there. It was talking about moving equipment around to work on the property, to work on the
It's broader
beach
than that.
nourishment. Well, it wasn't clear.
Okay.
So I did not deed that property over to anybody.
You did not. We didn't ask you to and aren't expecting you to.
But if you put a dune across the top of that property is unusable permanently.
Is it usable now?
It could be.
How?
When you put a beach out there.
No, it's not. No. That's okay. That's a question that you need to ask. So here's the rule. I'll just tell you straight up. Beach Nourishment is not going to make a property that's unbuildable today buildable. GS 146-6 says, notwithstanding any provisions, the title to land in or immediately along the Atlantic Ocean raised by means of publicly financed project or deposition of spoil materials vests in the state. So that ocean front that is created, you have the right to use it. You have the right to walk on it. You have the right to have a dune roll over. You have the right to do everything that you want to do on it that you do on it today, but you can't build on it and you can't use it to create more space for septic tanks or lot coverages or pools or all that stuff. So if your lot today is not buildable, it will not be buildable once we do this. By statute, not our rules, it's what the state says.
What about for the people that don't sign the easement?
Well, then we, theoretically, we stop the project and skip their lot and there's a hole there and that's where the erosion occurs.
Mine is not in the water.
I'm sorry?
Mine is not in the water.
Right.
It's on the edge of the water.
Right, and the dune line is going to go right along the high tide mark of the ocean.
We'll have a discussion.
Sure, okay. Other questions?
What if your house is still standing? Same scenario as that. House is still standing.
So if your house is in the surf line, just say today, where it's in the water,
It's not.
okay. If you have enough land to repair and get an occupancy permit today, then when we do beach nourishment, you can get repair and you can do and get your occupancy permit.
Even if that dune line
And,
is
and,
going to show on.
and if,
Back goes through the center of my house.
well, if you can use your house today, if you can get a permit to do it, you can, then yes, we're going to avoid that. But if you can't get a permit today, if you don't have enough lot now to put your septic tank on or to get your stairs on or do whatever it is that prevents you from permitting your house to make it occupiable today, when we do beach nourishment, that by statute doesn't give you the power to do that. You don't get the benefit of that beach nourishment to make your unimprovable house improvable.
So I don't think I fall into that category. But if I do, what are you doing with my house?
I'm not doing anything with your house. If
My house sits in the middle.
if you're out in the ocean and it hasn't fallen, then we're going to have to talk about what are we going to do about those houses. That's something that, yes, we have to talk about.
So if it looks like the dune comes up to my one wall, it comes out the other.
No, sir. That's not going to, that isn't how the dune line will be. I mean, if the house is there, the house can't be moved. If it's in, then we either go around it or we stop the thing. We're not going to build it through your house.
What about the house?
It'll go around it at the north end.
They're allowed to go around the house.
Well, you can't have a zigzag project because everywhere you zig in, you have a weakness and that then creates a problem. Hang on, I haven't finished yet. So as you go down towards the hotels, then you can gradually taper the project out seaward and then gradually taper it back in. And then that doesn't create the weakness that you would if you tried to zigzag it between all of the houses on the 150-foot lots as you go around.
Where do you start that?
It would be just to the south of the wherever those round houses are.
Why is that?
Because there's, if you,
Starting that. Why wouldn't you start it?
so as you walk the beach, if you look down the beach line, so, and
I'm familiar.
I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm trying to help answer your question. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's just, yeah. So as you look down the line, then you can, and we've run drones and we've got aerials and all that stuff, and you put a ruler on there and you try to figure out how to create a dune line that has the minimum impact to dwellings along the dune line. So the goal is to get a sustainable beach that gets you 5 years so that we can do it again in 5 years and to impact as few of the dwellings as we can impact along the way. And so there are places where we can't go out in the ocean far enough to go around the house without negatively impacting the life of the project. And in those places, we got to deal with that property owner and figure out what are we going to do with that house. And we aren't going to go around behind houses and leave the dune behind them and the house out in the water. And so there's going to be some houses that we've got to talk about and deal with that, 5 or 6 or 7. And I don't know, it depends on how many more fall in between now and April or May when they start this. But so we're going to do that. And then what we've asked them to do is, again, by minimizing the number of houses, they have to start somewhere to try to taper around those houses at the north end. The problem we have is we've had so many houses fall. We have a turn that goes in like that between the hotels and as you go south, and then there's other houses where it comes. So there's a big gap in there that's like a horseshoe. And you can't run the project through the horseshoe. So you're going to have to sort of thread the eye of the needle and taper it and massage it as best you can, again, to avoid as many houses as we can. And the taper starts wherever it starts. I know it's south of that round one to make it work around those northern end hotels. Other questions? Sure.
Are you projected to start the project north of town and work south, similar to years past?
That I don't know the answer. That's typically the contractor's call. I mean, they come in and they have the method and how they do it, the timing of where they do it is their call, as long as they do it within the windows that we've given them to build the project. So if they start to the north, then that's what they start. If they start to the south, that's where they start.
I was only asking because in terms of like what they were asking as far as working around the houses, if you start north, like we have the last two nourishments, and you work south, you have beach to continue working on. So you don't necessarily have to zigzag properties.
Well, they've done it, but they've also started in the middle and worked out. So I'm not sure yet which way they're going. And I think some of that's going to have to do with where we are with the jetty. I mean, our preference would be, if we're still waiting to construct the jetty, we want them to start as north as they can to preserve as much sand as we can until the jetty gets built.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it was like I remember the one year they started in this north and then came in the middle, and then last time it was just north to south the whole way. So I didn't know if that was like planned yet or not.
No, that's just generally their call, but we're going to have some more input on this one because of the jetty that we didn't have in the last ones.
Okay.
Other questions?
Is there anything that we could do as a community to help speed the process up or make it smoother for anyone in office?
No, if you haven't sent in your easement, send it in. But other than that, no, ma'am. We have pushed everybody as hard as we can push it, and we've done. I mean,
I know you have, but what can we do
I'm just saying,
as a community?
the permitting people are where we are now, and they've done a great job. I mean, it takes. If you just did this on a routine thing, it's a 3-year permitting cycle, and we've done this in a year. And so,
there's like emails to certain people, and nothing's
that's all done. It's now just waiting for it to work through.
Okay, I'm just wondering what boots on the ground.
And even if I had the permits today, they still couldn't start the project until the late
There's
spring.
no way to speed any permit process up at this point.
No, ma'am.
It's just bureaucratic, right?
Well, that and again, even if, like I just said, if we had the permits, I don't think the contractor is going to be willing.
Is there any way for you to try to bid the project before the permit? In any way?
It's already bid.
Okay.
That's already done.
Okay.
So there's wave height data that's out there, and that wave height data, the contractors use to time when they're going to do it. And for those of you that remember the first project that we did, Weeks tried to time that for the last possible minute, and they got caught because they didn't start soon enough, and it created a problem for them. And they got caught in the fall waves, and they couldn't nourish. You have a similar problem if you start too early, and so they don't want to mobilize, get started, and have to start.
The winter's over.
So really, they can't really start until that window
crossing
opens.
Fingers for March.
Right.
Through March.
Well,
May.
The project likely will not
Weather-wise,
start.
March,
Construction,
right? Yeah.
well, the construction's likely to start May or later.
Okay. Right past the storm window.
Right.
Basically. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yep.
Patience, right?
Patience, right.
Yeah.
You've had plenty. Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Part of the follow-up to her question, you're talking about the permitting process that typically would take 3 years. You were able to do it in 1. The question I have with the research and everything that I've been looking at, you had a forecast of this from 2013 that this damage would occur. Why were the permits not applied for years ago? You had 13 years to do that. And does that constitute, you as the city attorney, does that constitute willful neglect? Because they've lost their property.
I'm not even sure what you're asking.
What I'm asking is that the one single groin that qualified under the 50% rule, we originally had 3. They went through a degradation process. We had the feasibility study that was conducted that the county paid for. You all received the report. Why is it that we had to wait for 30+ houses to fall before we get this application that you're stating was pushed through in record
We
time?
didn't wait for 30 houses to fall to push it through. That's not a
You
true
just
statement.
submitted the application. What I'm saying is you had a forecast that this was coming. You had a feasibility study that you paid for and received. The county paid for it, received it, that forecasted the
Because
degradation
we
of these
went to the
groins.
permitting agencies when that came out and were told that it wasn't permittable, that they could not do that, that it did not meet the 50% rule, and that it was not an exempt permit. And we went back to them again, and they told us the same thing. And as administrations have changed, now they're telling us that it is exempt. As soon as they told us that it was exempt and permittable, we moved forward with the plan.
So you had the report in 2013 that forecasted the devastation that everyone's
In
experiencing.
2014.
There's 2014. Then you had a 2016 report that actually gave the measurements of all 3 of the groins, and that actually stated that all 3 of them were recommended should just be complete. They weren't rebuildable, except for with the original measurements for this one that we're saying does meet the 50% criteria. Again, my question is I don't understand why something wasn't done sooner to submit while we still had over 50% of the other 3. There was information on this even prior to
Because the permitting
2013.
agency says they weren't permittable.
Prior to 2013,
Yes.
you knew that they were degrading. You didn't have any official measurements. You just knew that they were degrading.
I'm telling you what they told us, and I'm telling you that there's a Moffitt-Nichols study out there that says just that. And we had to get around that Moffitt-Nichols study to get these permits to do what we're doing now.
And there was nothing else that could be done prior to
That's
this
what we were
stage.
told. They're not our groins. I mean, we didn't build the groins. We didn't keep them and maintain them. They're not ours. They're the old Navy groins that were put there by the Navy.
My argument is that you had the forecast, something more could have been
And
done.
I've
And then-
responded twice to your
And the other
question.
question is that the dune line that you're talking about, is this going to be a engineered continuous dune line, or is it selective dune building again?
It's going to be a continuous dune line.
And where again does it start? And then where are you
It's
planning
going
for
to
it?
start just to the south, to the south of the southernmost improvements, just inside the Park Service line at about a third of the way or maybe half of the way into the FUD site. That's the southern terminus, and it's going to go north to the Hallover area.
And the dune line, the continuous dune line, that's not something because of it being soft material, not hard material, and we have restrictions on that. The continuous dune line, that couldn't have been built anytime sooner than this situation that they're dealing with
No,
now.
it can't. You have to, so you have a project that we built 3 years ago that was designed to last 5 years. And so we've done this twice, and it didn't last, and it was apparent it didn't last 5 years. Well, when it was apparent it wasn't going to last, then we took the steps to move it up. So we're doing it really a year ahead of schedule to try to solve those problems.
The
So-
sand replenishment or a continuous dune line, when have you done a continuous dune line study to deflect
I
the
think every
erosion?
project we've done's had a continuous dune line. We've never done a project that didn't have a continuous dune line.
So you've consistently put a full dune out on
Yes.
Buxton Beach the entire time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Other questions?
I've got friends that have beachfront
Sure.
property asking questions. I'm going to read this one to you. I think I understand what he's saying, but if the mean high water line is based on a 19-year average taken from tide data that may not be located at this specific stretch of beach, and then applied to a shoreline that changes frequently, what margin of error exists in the location of the line here? And if that margin of error were shown as a range instead of a single fixed line, would any existing property still clearly fall on the ocean side of it? In other words, if the houses that are down there near where the water is now, but the mean high water line on surveys is not based on current right now, it's based on an average over the last whatever number of years. What are you guys using to determine where the placement of that dune is going to be? What's the mean high water line that you're using? Are you going to go out and look at where the water is today or last week?
What
or-
we're trying to do is look down that dune line as it now exists, that the row of houses as it now exists, and trying to move the dune as landward as we can to have the least impacts to the people that own property and creates a project that will last us 5 years until we can have the funds to do it again. And so there's going to be some work that the engineers are going to do between now and the time construction starts, looking at the situation on the ground, how many houses have fallen, how many houses have not fallen, how is it meandering, how do we get a relatively straight berm line, and how do we do it without impacting people? And where we impact people, then we've got to talk to those people and say, okay, how are we going to mitigate these impacts?
Are there any preliminary plans on paper where
Um,
you've drawn out where the prospective dune line is going to be? Because we'd really like to see that.
Well, we've got drone footage where if you put it here, there's going to be this house. If you put it here, it's going to be this house. We don't have a final drawing of what it's going to be. Right now, there's about, if nothing else falls, there's like 7 or 8 houses that are in what would be in the dune line. And 3 of those are expected to be moved. 2 of them are out in the ocean. One of them's listing, the first one, the blue one at the far south end, is likely to fall, so that likely won't be an issue. And so there's about 5 more that are in that area that right now may or may not be habitable, and we got to deal with those property owners.
I'm mainly talking about the line Tower Circle. There are like 7 or 8 houses on that part that were on the west side of what was Tower Circle.
Mhm.
And before you guys commit this thing to a final plan, I really think you should sit down with the property owners affected and let's talk about it jointly instead of just springing it on us.
Well, we don't have to, because we can't do it without those property owners where they're in the dune line.
I'd like
having
to
that
have an
conversation.
ongoing discussion about it. I'd like for you guys to be notifying us, sending us drawings of these are the areas that we are thinking about doing and get some input from us, because I had to ask about this meeting because we have been in the dark on what was going on since the last meeting, which was several months ago. And a lot has changed since then. So we really are feeling like we're not getting anything until it's already decided and everything's going to just be done. And we haven't had a chance to have any input. That's one of the reasons we're having a lot of questions tonight.
Right, that's why we're here. So thank
So
you.
I would request that you guys meet or have a discussion, give us something on paper that we can look at and see how it's going to affect our properties before you commit fully to doing it.
Thank
Will
you.
you commit to that?
Sure. I mean, I don't think we have any choice about that. So that's not, I agree with you.
Okay.
So my question pertains to the jetty. So once the permit's approved, what's the turnaround time for sending it out to bid, awarding the contract, and having the contractor mobilize?
I'd say maybe 3 months or so to go through that entire process.
So I'm asking as a contractor, you said that we're expecting the permit to be awarded in March. In my ears, I hear April, May. And then to send it out to bid, get that back. How long does that? I guess you're answering 3 months. My thing is, given the urgency of the jetty, is there a way? And you guys might already be doing this, but if it was me, if I had to build a house emergently, I would break apart and have concurrent paths going with this. And if there were any changes that came from the permit approval, then that would be change order.
That's exactly
add
what we're
all.
doing.
You're doing that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're kind of at that point. So we've got the design.
They're
ready.
not contingent on each other.
Okay.
And the nourishment permit is not contingent on the going permit at all.
What I heard when you started was we're waiting on the permit. Once we get the permit approved, then we're going to send it out to bid.
That's on the jetty project.
That's what I'm, yes,
Yes,
my question
I-
is on the jetty.
Yeah, And I hear what you're saying, yeah.
Here's the
And
reason
we,
I'm asking is because if we expected it in March, but we didn't get approval until May, June, then we had to send it out to bid and we couldn't get that back. And then suddenly we're into the next bad weather window and oops, we couldn't make it happen this year. We dumped a bunch of sand and we didn't get the jetty in.
yeah, we're anticipating the permits soon. And if we have any reason to believe that they're not going to be issued in a time that will let us keep to that schedule, then I think we would look at an option like that where we're, soliciting bids or working with the contractor one way or another to make sure we're hitting that timeline. We have no interest in it.
We've got about a 90-day construction cycle to build it, is what we're
You
understanding.
can build it in 90 days.
To build it. And so that means we need to be starting it in June to finish it by August. We have a similar sort of time frame on the Nourishment, and they're going to run concurrent. And so the goal, if everything went perfect, and it never does, but if it did, would be to have the whole project completed by the end of August. And that all works if everything falls in place and we get the permits on time and all that stuff. If we don't get the permits on time, then we have to wait until we have them. Part of the problem with one thought was, let's just go ahead and bid it and get that out of the way. But we don't know what to bid yet because we don't know what conditions they're going to put on the permits. What are they going to tell us about widths, heights? Do you have a cap? No, there's a number of things we don't know the answer to yet.
Yeah, but you have to have a basic framework for what you think is going to go in right now. So is there, and here, let me finish, because I understand what you're saying there, but you should absolutely be able to be bidding what you expect to happen right now. And then if that gets thrown at you, then make a change. I'd be sweating building a house right now and get it done by August, much less that jetty in a commercial.
In your world, that is exactly the way that you would do it and exactly the way I would do it. In our world with government bidding, if we put it out there to bid and we get a bid price and I get the lowest price, and so we've chosen you as the contractor, and then we come in and we get permit conditions where we have to reduce the scale of the project, change the scale of the project, something like that, we have to then rebid it because you can't then reduce your price because the other bidder is going to say, well, if I'd have known you were going to do it like that, I'd have bid this. And so if we do that and we get sued, then not only do we have to pay you your profit, we have to pay that other bidder his lost profit. And so we're not allowed to do what you just described.
You can't do what amounts to a change order once a project starts? I find that hard to believe.
Not if you're changing the scope.
That's what a change order is.
Well, a change order in our.
I'm not trying to be difficult, Bobby. I appreciate everything.
The change
you guys
order
are
is,
doing.
I want to paint the wall blue instead of yellow.
I just know the reality is if it were me, if I were managing this
I hear
project, I would be bidding this thing right now so that when that permit came through approved, we had people stacked ready to roll.
But that's not the reality of the state bidding process. Exactly.
I'm so tired of getting that answer from people. I guess my question is who somebody has the ability to kind of make that, look at this situation, because I mean, I'm telling you, if the jetty doesn't get built and we do all this, I mean, imagine the.
I hear you. That's why I lay awake at night, just what you just said.
All right, well.
These aren't our rules that we're fighting. If it was our rules, we could fix it. That's legislation. Yeah.
First off, I'd like to start off thanking every single one of you for coming out tonight, because obviously this is an important issue. I love seeing a packed room. Thank you all for coming down as well, standing up here, taking the hard questions. Nobody likes having to do that, but that's your job, not mine, thankfully. I just was wondering if you anticipate, you say do the beach nourishment every 5 years. Last time we did beach nourishment, the numbers were, there's higher erosion rates, the jetties are degrading, things are going wrong. We've retreated a lot, we've lost a lot. Do you anticipate further retreatment in the next one? Basically, what I'm saying, I'm in a business across the street. Until I see all this happen, it's real hard for me to reinvest in my property, knowing it could be gone. I think everybody in this room is feeling the same way. So we're losing economy, we're losing. There's really there's a hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're gonna invest your life savings in a hope, So I think the people asking about where the dune's gonna go and whatnot, what do we expect for the next 5 years? Because you build a house, you get a 30-year loan. It's not 5 years, So I believe if we build the jetty that's designed to build, I think it'll stay. I think we'll get grass back there. I think a lot of stuff will be really cool. But, you know, there's houses that are in the ocean that are not usable today. That's a conversation I don't want to be part of.
So you've asked a much broader question than maybe you think you asked.
I know. I know.
But we have a beach nourishment fund that's funded with occupancy taxes. And we have a model that's run out that we have put in all the variables in the model and future projections about what we expect revenues to do and future projections about what we would expect cost to do and all those things. And if all of our assumptions were to hold true, which they never do, but if they did, then we have sufficient money well into the future, 30-year timelines, to fund nourishment projects on the scale that we've been doing. On the other hand, if costs continue to grow at the rate that they grew from the last project to this project, our fund growth, our revenue growth isn't growing at that rate.
Especially with us losing.
Well, and it doesn't matter about that. You just take volumes and say, we're going to do a $2 million volume and it costs this, and we're looking at 3 or 4% growth in the model, and we're getting, 30% growth in the costs, then obviously your revenues aren't keeping up with your costs, and you're going to have problems down the road.
Right.
And that is the direction that we are going. We have some reserves and some money in the fund now that would hopefully let us bridge the gap and make this project viable. But, if it lasts 5 years and if costs do what we expect, then we'll be ready in 5 years. But if you're asking me, is that going to happen? You
Right.
tell
Hopefully
me.
the jetty holds
You
sand
tell
and we
me.
save money and we can prolong all
So
that. Like,
with
I
that
understand.
said, what we've started also doing, and I'm glad Jordan's here, he sits on the CRC. And so we started the conversation at the CRC and Jordan, I think, brought it up and made the motions. And so we've started those conversations to say, what are the other tools that we can do to mitigate shoreline erosion other than beach nourishment, given that we're going to run out of funds at some point, whether it's in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, to do beach nourishment. And we got to have something in place to protect and mitigate erosion on our shorelines. And so
Totally agree.
if we had a way to do that you go in, and I'll make this all up, and you could do an offshore reef, and you could afford to put that in, and it mitigated that. And once you got it in, it meant our projects go from a 5-year life to a 10-year life. Well, now you've just doubled your fund.
Correct.
And so you can do some things. And so how all that math's going to work out, what the cost of those projects that could be doable will cost, can we even afford to do it? That's all stuff that's in the future. But right now, what at the state level we're trying to get them to do, and it's moving in that direction, is to find out what we can do to modify that hardened structure ban so that we can start looking at other ways to do it so that we can stretch our money further and make these things last longer.
Absolutely. I understand that the jetty hopefully will double the money,
Right.
longevity and
If
all
it
that.
if it adds a year, then it's added 20%.
Also, not being the only state in the U.S. that has a no hardened structures ban would be lovely for all of North Carolina. Responsibly.
But like jetty, if it adds a year to the project, it added 20% to our funds. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Other questions?
Hey, appreciate you being here tonight.
Sure.
Not sure if it was brought up already. It was a few minutes late, but last time I was at a meeting like this was Rodanthe Wave Salvo Community Building. I heard you guys talk about the occupancy tax fund that you'd had laid out, and it's kind of under the impression Rodanthe was next in line. Totally understand Buxton's need for it. They need it bad, but Rodanthe does too. So just when's Rodanthe's turn?
So at the rate, as I just said, the cost is going up greater than the revenue in our fund. And if we simply maintain the projects that we have on the books now and keep them going, there's no excess money in the fund to do other projects. The fund's not growing enough to keep up with the cost to do what we're doing and create funds sufficient to do, say, Rodanthe. 3 years ago, when we had that meeting in Rodanthe, we estimated that the cost to do Rodanthe would be roughly $40 million. I would dare say that number is closer to $60 million today.
Right.
That fund isn't going to grow by $60 million in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. And so absent an influx of money somewhere, then we as Dare County are not going to be able to fund a project in Rodanthe. Now, if we get one of these other methods to mitigate shoreline erosion, then the possibility exists that you could do something other than beach nourishment there that might help slow down some of the problems there. But again, that becomes a cost number two. What does it cost to do that? And then if it does, then how do you fund it? If that brings it back down into the realm of possibility, then it does. But $60 million isn't close to being doable. We don't have $10 million in excess funds.
Right. From the occupancy tax that you're collecting, you said it'll take what, 30 years?
I haven't run it, but probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is, so as far as your kind of game plan, like Buxton definitely needs some help, but the gateway to the island is in dire need too. I mean, I live north of the circle, own a business north of the circle. On the sound side, ocean rushes through my yard a couple times a month. I mean, it's becoming a really regular problem. So
And we are aware of
just kind of wanted to make you aware
Oh, sure.
and be an advocate for Rodanthe.
I'll just, the chairman, the chairman has a meeting set up with the leadership in the Senate next week or the week after. Right.
Yeah, let me,
I mean, we're a little off topic, but.
Appreciate that, the info, yeah.
I want to address Jeff's question too a little bit. What Bobby's told you, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay, yep.
But Jeff, I think you're aware of this. It's not just our beach nourishment fund that we have funds for. We're looking at other things. I was supposed to have a meeting with the head of the leadership in the Senate last Monday, but due to the weather, I sent a letter to all of the senators and the House members back in November. I got a response from Rabin, who's the mover and shaker when it comes to bills in the legislature. I had asked for three things. That they had established several years ago a beach nourishment fund, but they never put any funds in it. In my letter, I asked them to start putting money in that fund annually, not just for Outer Banks, but the entire state of North Carolina, the whole coast. Second thing was NC-12 to have a short-term and a long-term plan for them. We did a study. We have a plan. We want the Transportation Department to have a plan. The third thing was to eliminate hardened structures. I just on the phone with him yesterday. I'm hoping to get back. I'm hoping to get to Raleigh next week because his very words to me was, we need to figure out a way to make this happen. And he talked about all three issues. So I wanted you to be aware that not only just our occupancy tax that we're using for beach nourishment funds, we're looking at other avenues to try to get money from the state. We spent $275 million to date. For this gentleman here, Bobby says the model won't allow new projects. Folks, we can't afford to spend $275 million in the last 12 years and not have the money to do the maintenance. That's critical. That's why we're doing this maintenance project. We even moved it up. It was supposed to be 5 years. Unfortunately, Mother Nature kicked us in the butt and we moved it from 27 to 26. So unfortunately, right now, until we can find some additional funds, we've got to protect this fund to do maintenance when we spent so many millions of dollars over the years. We can't afford to do a new project right now. We've got to do the maintenance when it's needed for the projects that we've done. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely answered it, but I've seen the erosion there, and
It's not that, I know it's not
we're going
that
to have
anymore.
another emergency meeting in Rodanthe before too long, but I
Right.
really appreciate you guys being here for this meeting.
Jeff, I hope I answered your question. Yeah. Write your legislator. How many letters have you written? How many phone calls have you made? How many phone calls have you made? How many letters have you?
the government every day for fun since I saw a house drop myself.
Yeah, good.
Yes,
Well,
I have.
get your neighbors to do it too, please. Really. Yeah.
Good.
Fantastic.
Sorry.
Fantastic.
Well, you're working because
Yeah,
I got a call.
That's great to hear.
I got a call from the governor's office last week wanting to have a meeting to start having those conversations as well. So whatever you're doing is helping.
Well,
So,
I have family in Raleigh, and so I've heard their children to fight as well.
okay, great.
Whatever we-
Great. Yes, ma'am.
I just would like clarification on the unoccupiable houses.
Uh-huh.
There are houses, this is for my neighbors.
Sure.
There are houses that were 3 and 4 lots back, that the entire property is still intact, but they may have had septic tank damage. And so their house is not they can't occupy their houses. Are you saying they will never be able to fix those septic tanks?
No, ma'am. If a house has a septic tank that went out from overwash and then the overwash recedes, then they can go to the health department and ask the sanitarian to get a permit. And if they're eligible for a permit, if they've got enough property and enough separation in their drain field and all those things that you got to have a septic tank, then they'll issue them a permit. And then that makes that house occupiable
That was
again.
the clarification
Yes.
I needed, because you had said if they're not
No.
occupiable now, they
Well,
won't be.
when I mean
after
that,
nourishment.
well, maybe that's the wrong word. It should be permittable. If it's not, if you're ineligible for a permit because you don't have enough land to meet whatever the requirements are, then Beach Nourishment's not going to give you more land that
understand.
makes you eligible.
Thank you.
What about the last line of vegetation? Those basically it's all overwashed, all your vegetation's been destroyed. That's always been the obstacle.
Well, I'm the wrong person to ask. The CRC or the CAMA regulators have a method, and we had a meeting about that today as well, have a method of how they calculate where you do the setbacks from in that situation.
Before the storm, the houses had grass, they had septic, but after saltwater kills all the grass, they're going to be like, oh, that
Well,
makes
I'll
sense.
tell you that there were 2 houses that don't exist there today that we went to the houses and the water was all the way around them. They had some amount of land landward. They ran their septic tank through the surf zone into the dry land. They had enough separation. They built their steps down into the wet sand, and we gave them occupancy permits to go into their houses and live in them and do whatever they wanted until all that washed out, and then they couldn't do it again. And eventually it eroded away enough. They didn't have enough land to do that, but as long as they did, they can get permits.
Do you know if there's, I'm sorry, do you know if there's houses that could put like an above ground peat moss system in? I know it's way more expensive, but
I don't know.
Would
That
that
would
be
be a
allowed?
question for the health department. What our position is when your house doesn't meet the code for septic tank or for access or structural damage or whatever the reason is, if you can bring it back to code and meet all the rules that are out there that allow you to occupy a house, then we'll give you a CO and let you occupy the house. Other questions?
Thanks for coming down here today.
Sure.
Just a couple questions related to the groin area. Number one, at this stage, do you have an idea as to whether or not the Buxton Beach access parking lot is going to still be accessible from Old Lighthouse Road after this is all done?
So there's a couple things going on with that parking lot. The first one is it's being used by the Army Corps of Engineers to they have these big, large mega deck mats that come into the site to do removal of contaminated soil. That project's supposed to go through April. If they leave and we do some testing to determine that beach is clean around the groin, which is actually pretty likely, then we would reopen that area. The complicating factor is we are going to work with their county to provide staging areas for both the construction of the groin and also the beach nourishment. And that requires 3 staging areas because the beach nourishment, groin repair, and then beach nourishment also in Avon. So what we basically said in the permit that we issued 2 hours ago is that we'll just work with the county. There may be some temporary inconveniences for folks using those parking lots, but it's really great to repair. So more to come there. We are going to try to keep the lifeguard beach parking lot open. The problem we have there is that we have a 400-foot long something out for public access, but it's going to change over time.
Gotcha. Thanks. That's helpful. I was actually thinking a little more long term. It sounds like what you're saying is you do expect in the long term that the high water mark is not going to be so far, the dune is not going to be so far westward that you will still be able to drive down Old Lighthouse Road when this is all like a year or two from now and get to that parking lot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just make sure we're talking about the right Old Lighthouse parking lot, which is the parking lot right next to where the lighthouse originally stood.
No, I'm talking about,
So
I'm talking about the old coast, the old,
That's called the Buxton Beach access.
Right.
That's the formerly used fence site, also known as the Navy site. Actually, I do not anticipate that area will be usable, at least for parking. If there's any way we can make it usable, we will. You're probably well aware that the road that leads to that site is gone.
Right.
We lost another about 150 feet of parking lot just 2 weekends ago. Also, the Army Corps of Engineers were doing amazing work there. I'm not sure you all are aware of just how significant the contract is going on right now. They've awarded an $8 million contract. They have up to $38 million worth of work that they can do there under the umbrella of that contract. That is not a remediation project. That is just a project to remove the heaviest contaminated soil. They've removed 3,000 cubic yards of that soil and about 125,000 gallons of contaminated water and about 1.2 million pounds of concrete that was liberated in the area and is related to the solid. So after they're done with this project, they're going to do a comprehensive sampling, find out what's left in the ground, then they will begin remediation. I say that because that will take some time, and it's not clear if they'll be able to allow access back to that area if it's still working. The goal in the end is to provide as much access as possible. I just don't want to speculate on something that's impossible.
gotcha. Thank you. And just this last question was, could somebody give a little more detail about the construction of the groin and how the anticipated, I understand it's not approved yet, but the anticipated design of the groin and because, and how long you expect it to last? Because what really caught my interest in the slideshow was it mentioned, steel sheets, and I'm just worried that they're going to rust like the,
Yeah, so the design of this groin would be kind of a composite structure where we would replace the steel sheet pile using similar material along the landward end, where hopefully it will be mostly buried for a long time after the project. The idea is once the groin's there, it should stabilize the dry sand beach on the north side of it to restore it to where it was 10, 15 years ago in that kind of width. As you move out on the structure, it will transition to mostly a armor stone structure out on the water. Historically, there was armor stone to protect the sheet pile and also help reduce scours. So we're really going to rely on that stone as the bulk of the groin structure. That stone will be set on mattresses to keep it from settling in. And the stone will be sized appropriately for the setting to try to keep it from moving around too much. But it is one of the most energetic areas on the coast. So, we're trying to account for that.
gotcha. Thank you.
Other questions? Anybody else have a question?
Just thinking about our neighbors here that have lost their homes or their lots are not buildable now. And I know that in Rodanthe, some of those have been tagged as washout lots without taxes being paid, nothing due. So I wonder if any of these folks are being charged taxes for property they can't use and what the process is to,
Sure.
once it's gone or what do you do?
It depends on when. Taxes are assessed annually. And the taxes are assessed based on the status of the property on January 1st of the year. And so whatever the condition was on January 1st is how the tax assessor assesses the value of that lot. So if there was a house there on January the 1st and it was accessible and it washed away in February, for that tax year, you got to pay it for the whole year. Next January, when they do the assessment, then if that lot's not there, then it'll be a washout and there won't be any taxes after that. So
Okay.
whatever it is on January the 1st is what the assessment value is.
Okay, understood.
What if there was no house there
The question then becomes, does the assessor assess the value of the land that's left, if there's land left? And it either has no value or some minimal value. And there's a statutory process to do that. And I don't know what it is, but they would look at that and decide if it had value. If it didn't have value at all, then it would be a washout lot and it wouldn't be taxed. If it had value, then it would be taxed at whatever that value was. And if you want to know more about how to do the value, I can hook you up with the assessor and he can tell you exactly how they do that. If your lot has no value, then it has no tax.
Well, I'd just like to add that, I'm glad everybody's here and this is moving forward. I know that there's a lot of red tape that y'all have to go through in order to accomplish a project like this. And it seems like it's taking forever, but, we're the end is near. But I would ask too that instead of just the complaining and the negativity, whether it's, coming from news outlets, Park Service updates, the county updates, it's just all seems very negative, and I believe that that's hurting the local economy as well. So, I'm a realtor, and so I get to hear a lot of that, and I see it in buyers, overall. They're
To that issue, I mean, I had a meeting this morning about something else with the tourism board, and I met with their director and their chairman and told them just that. We've got 100 miles of beach in Dare County, and we got 2 miles of beach that we got problems on.
right.
And so there's a lot to offer, and everybody, that it's not a story to say you got a beautiful beach in Avon. It's a story to say we got a bunch of houses that fell in Buxton. And so we get that negative press.
Oh, yeah.
When the chairman and I do interviews, if we do it live, we almost always start with, we've got 100 miles of beautiful beach in Dare County, and we got 2 miles of problems, and we're working to solve those problems.
Right.
If they tape it, they without fail take that out. So
I know.
we're trying to get that story out there, and we're trying to get that out there, and we're encouraging the tourism board to get that out there too, and would encourage everybody else to get that out there because, again, it's factually true, and it is, we still have a lot to offer, even though we do in fact have those problems.
Absolutely. I would just like to see a little more positivity out there
there you
because
go.
we all know it exists. We're sorry for what the folks in Buxton
Sure.
Beach are going through, but it's not everybody. And it's,
Yes, ma'am.
even so, the people in Buxton Beach, have businesses and economic needs here as well. We're all based on tourism. So I'd like to see some cheerfulness.
And I would say, talk to them at the tourism board and follow up with the conversation we had this morning. Anyone else have questions? So Plan B, well, where we are right now is in North Carolina, we have one tool to combat oceanfront shoreline erosion, and that's beach nourishment. And if beach nourishment does not work, there is no other tool that we're allowed to do, nothing. And so what we're trying to do is change that narrative to create Plan Bs. And with the help of the Coastal Resources Commission, and I keep throwing your name out there, Jordan, because you're the only one here from the Coastal Resources Commission, we hope to get some traction and make that happen. And then we have a way to plan for a Plan D. But there can't, if beach nourishment doesn't work, there's no Plan D. That's just the law in North Carolina today. Any other questions? Seeing none, I thank everybody for coming out. I appreciate all the questions because even though you don't think we're trying to be transparent, we really are. And we want you to know what we're doing and what's going on. And that's why we had this meeting, to make sure that you had a chance to get your questions answered. If you have other questions that you forgot to answer or forgot to ask, or you're too shy to stand up in public and ask them. I'm relatively easy to get to. Call me, and I'm glad to talk to you about it and tell you anything that I know. And I'm glad to share that with you at any time. So, sure.
The Plan B, it is frustrated. It is so frustrating because we're with you. We have to deal with legislation, just like trying to get things done is very, very difficult. But the part of that Plan B is I was in 2 meetings today to talk to people that are trying to help or want to come up with bridge options or other options. Bobby and I are working with another study group out of UNC. We're working with another study group out of NC State. So we're trying every angle behind the scenes that we can try, but legally we are just as trapped as you guys feel. And it is just as frustrating. We are constantly on the phone in Raleigh and anywhere we can go to get answers, in DC, and anywhere we can go. We talk with Tom Tillis and Greg Murphy, and they've all been here. We've walked the beaches with them to try to get them to see where we are. So unfortunately, right now, he's right. The Plan B is we're legally not allowed to have one, basically, but we are working very hard behind the scenes. And I know that's hard to see, but it is happening. So thank you all for coming. Thank you guys for, being here and asking your questions. And we are always here to help you answer those questions any way we can. But I promise you we are as frustrated at times as you guys are in trying to just get things done. So.
What?
He didn't say Magna was the best. He said Buxton was the best. Okay, and so with that being said, why not the Park Service? I mean, if you go to a park, there's a baseball field. It's a baseball game. For us, we serve. There's a coliseum or a place where people fly together and do the things. And the Jenny was that for a long time, and it brought in a lot of people from a lot of different places because it was special. And on the 100 miles of beach, there was a place where people were from Virginia were passing all those miles up to come to the Jenny. It's a third culture. It's a culture. We have different talk, we speak. We have ethics in the water. There's certain things about it that make it a cultural place. The lighthouse where it was, for all these old families who have been here for generations, have somebody back in the book that worked there or did something. It was special for people of this place. I just think that it's time to acknowledge it as for Stonehenge, or what, not Stonehenge, where they carved the face and called it Stonehenge. For us, I mean, that's, you guys are part of for that as well.
Okay.
In Malibu, California, there's a guy named Michael Blow in North State called State Class. He got some help with and so Michael Blum called Chris Foreman, right up on every talk about this, and Matt Walker, former editor of Surfing Magazine, and said, "What do you think about treating that as?" And they said, "We're interested." And so he actually drafted a draft national register listing for Buxton Beach to be listed on the national register for its significance in surfing safety.
So that didn't go anywhere, but I will.
Well-
contact information and I'll.
But before we head down that road too deep.
Never repaired that.
Typically, when something goes on the National Historic Register, there are restrictions that come with that, and we don't want to create more impediments to, so be careful what you ask for. I'm sorry. Okay. Did you have another question? Hang on.
Yeah, I did. I know friends of mine sent in questions on the announcement of this meeting. There was a form or a place for people to send questions, but I haven't heard any of those addressed.
Do you have that? Okay. Yeah, I didn't get those, so I don't have those. Our PIO has those, and we'll respond to them.
Publicly or private?
Well, we're going to have we will have a web page dedicated to this project, which is what we normally do, and we'll have the frequently asked questions on there. So those will ultimately be on that list with the answers. Any other questions? Hang on, I had a gentleman up on the front first, and I'll come back to you.
I have a question. We're all going to base, we're all that work is done. Once that's all done and settled, and Old Lighthouse Road is no longer a good access point to get to the parking lot there, could we bring a road coming from the old Lighthouse parking lot and make abilities for that area?
I can't answer that question. I'll give you. Well, counties aren't allowed to build roads. Only the state can build roads, or municipalities. Counties don't build roads. So to build a road would either require the state to build it or the Park Service to build it, one of the two. So whether that could be done or not, I don't know. Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you answered this over the course of it, with clarity. Like, I was just trying to have my today, it's that big issue for him with Buxton Avon and growing also through the repair. I saw that on the server and local later and pretty excited. But now I'm feeling like there's a lot of hurdles. Was that headline you or there's more things?
That's a correct headline, but there's more than state authorization. So what that says is we've got all the state authorizations. We've got the Park Service authorizations. That's the second one. And the third one is the core authorizations, and that's the one we don't have yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Articles that they have it, of course. Then you have the court.
Well, we don't. Brett,
Is the state permit for that process wasn't more difficult than the truck permit?
I don't know. Ask me in a week, I'll tell you. I don't know. So we had the state permit historically was where we got tied up in answer to the young lady's question back here. Once we got them thinking the way we were thinking, then that process went relatively smoothly. And so, previous administrations at the state level were different than the current administration. And so under the current administration, we didn't have the problems permitting that we had when we looked at it previously. We've never been to the core because we never got past the state. The state's the clearinghouse. They get it all, and then it goes to the core, and we never got that far before. So now we're there, and it's going to the core, and it's going through their clearinghouse, and hopefully we'll get permits pretty soon.
Yeah, Andre, that's all going very well. We have meetings with both the state and the core. The state did not issue a permit for the core. The state determined they did not need to issue a permit for the core system. That from a permitting requirement. And they just formally notified the county of that.
A little broader than that, though, David. It did say that, but it also put conditions on what we could do and how we could do it to make it come within the repair exception.
So the Army Corps of Engineers, we're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. They have all these requirements, for example, if you can both with the National Marine Fisheries Service, that's for endangered species in the water, and then the Fish and Wildlife Service for endangered species on the land. Actually, already did their public notice for the one. You may have read about it. I hope the world what they're doing. And had a 30-day public comment period. Actually, going very well. We actually just need to work with them. The state has another process called the federal consistency review. And so sometimes people will say, well, federal property, right? And the answer is no. That's because of something called the Coastal Zone Management Act. The Coastal Zone Management Act says that the federal government, when they have property within the state, has to make sure anything they do is consistent with state coastal law. So we are also consulting under that with state and before. But it's all moving along very well, and I'm not aware of any issues there. And it's obvious that it sounds like it's all lining up with their schedule for contracting as well. So I just want you to know this is my chapter on these meetings every other week.
Is Buxton Beach officially closed right now? And if so, is there a date for reopening, and what's that look like? And lastly, second, to that is there a plan for cleaning up the bridge?
Buxton Beach is closed from the north end of Buxton down to the Buxton Avon 43, about a mile and a half. It's down closed for multiple reasons. I don't know if you noticed, but there were 4 septic washouts, 4 systems that broke, and if you had walked the shore line otherwise, you would have known that. In addition to that, there are HVAC units just falling down. There are houses that are about to fall. So we don't have it all signed. But technically that front of that side is closed. It's also closed in front of the formerly site to let the board do great work that they were doing. There's a lot of support from the community. And it's closed a little bit further to the south, just because in the past we've had petroleum owners that have gone that far. As soon as they're done with their work, and this is from the area around this one south is clean, it will reopen. As soon as the beach area project is ready, we build the stand out and it's no longer hazard units to the houses.
It won't reopen until we get it.
You know, we assess it regularly, right? If it's a big liability and a concern. We really don't want somebody to get hurt. And so the concern right now is that there are going to be houses that are going to face imminent potential failure or collapse, which they are. And we talked to the county facility planning department and they help us assess that. We're probably going to continue to stay on our website. I hope.
The answer is yes. The permit says we've got to remove the debris before we can't cover it with sand.
The question about cleanup of all the debris, yes, that is ongoing. So there are 4 owners of the houses that just collapsed. We spent a lot of time over the weekend working with them and their contractors. Their contractors are trying to figure out how to split the efforts because they can do it down to stage 1. It's heaviest down to the first run, although one of the local contractors did amazing work there over the last couple of days. So I do anticipate that over the next few weeks, we'll do it. Like basically tag these between us and the owners contract.
What about the existing pilings that like 1 feet out of the water?
They got to go in the zone that we're nourishing. We've got to take those out.
The regulations stand back and whether or not they say something is done on if the bags are damaged, they will most likely be by if they're not damaged, they might end up saying what happens to the 28 to
If the bags are intact and they're in the area where we're nourishing, then we'll cover them up and go on. If they're not intact, then the owner has to remove those. They have to remove those whether we do nourishment or not if they're not intact. If they're behind the project for some reason and they don't get covered, then the owner is going to have to cover them. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, then thank you all again for coming out. Hey. All right, go ahead.
How much